these parks needed to be rededicated in honor of these 5 individuals and the 6th person for the road, because they gave tireless hours of their own time in many, many situations to this town, and they should be remembered and for years to come, for generations to come. So probably in another 30, 40 years, hopefully they'll be doing another one of these dedications. So we're going to start and with the one on the very end to the immediate left. And we're going to talk about Joe Rotella. And for those guys who are here tonight in honor of Joe, he meant a lot to all of us. He was the first recreation director in the town of Niagara, starting back in the 50s. I used to tell Joe when I was at banquets and he was at, I used to say, I know, you used to ride to school on your horse when you first started working there. And he was also the first athletic director in the history of Niagara Wheatfield School before it even became centralized. Bill Ross could talk to that. Joe was an inspiration to many of the youth. For some reason, he took a shining to the Belden Center bums, as we like to call ourselves back then. And many of us followed in his footsteps and went into the education field. If Joe were here today, he would be proud of how the town recreation program has come over the last 60 plus years, but he would also tell me this isn't necessary. He was that kind of guy, very humble. Joe was a World War II vet. He fought in Europe as a member of the 83rd Infantry, nicknamed the Thunderbolts, and they were instrumental in the European invasion and then the Battle of the Bulge. He began teaching at Military Road School in 1951 and moved to the new Niagara Wheatfield High School in 1959. He was the first football and basketball coach in NW history and was the first Niagara Wheatfield athletic director and key contributor in the development of the NW Athletic Conference, the old complex, in the early 60s. Joe was also, as I mentioned, the first recreation director in the history of the town of Niagara, and he was the driving force in the establishment and overall development of our summer program, which began in 1953 and was running through the 70s when he left. Joe's impact on over 5,000 of the youth over his 22 years as director is immeasurable. He established many of the programs that were current for years and years and years, including both our summer and winter recreation programs. And he was also instrumental in establishment of the Town Niagara Recreation Committee and the development of using teachers to be playground instructors. For those of you who remember that and go back that far, and that goes back quite a ways, you remember that. He helped design many of the pocket parks we currently have, including the old baseball fields that were used for years through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s until we built this park. His idea was to stay low-key. That was the way Joe was. And unfortunately, he passed away on March 24th, 2015, at the ripe old age of 91. Joe was playing golf in his 90s up until just not too long before he passed. I know I couldn't play now, and I'm only 64. So we hereby dedicate the entrance road to Veterans Memorial Community Park as Joe Rotella Way. It will be 7,000 Joe Rotella Way on this date, August 21st, 2017. I didn't realize how big a street sign was until you see it like low. They're up on the road, you think they're not that big. Okay, our next playground park was dedicated to Rosa and Garcia. I don't know, is anyone here from Rosa's family? We tried to contact them, we're not sure we could get anyone. Okay, then I'll read the bio and we'll, myself and the town board will do the unveiling. Rose was a Democratic state committee woman in the 1st Assembly District for 2 terms and was the delegate to the 1962 State Convention. And she also was invited to the inauguration of President John F. Kennedy. Rose was a charter member of the Town of Niagara Women's Democratic Club and was a 6-term president. She was chairwoman of the Town of Niagara Youth Recreation Commission and a member of St. Leo's Church, as well as Niagara Fire Company #1 Ladies Auxiliary, and also a resident of our town for 17 years, where she served as historian from 1953 to 1961, and was also a member of the State Historical Society. Rose passed away on May 16, 1964, unfortunately at the early age of 50. The park and playground located at Joanne Circle in the town of Niagara was dedicated to Rose Garcia on September 17, 1966. We hereby rededicate this park playground in the memory of Rosa M. Garcia on this date, August 21st, 2017. And again, I was the playground instructor at the Veterans Heights Park for a number of years. Nobody ever called it anything but the Veterans Heights Park. We didn't know any better. William Etherington, PFC Jr., was killed in action in Korea on November 18, 1950. He was only 21 at the time of his death. William was the son of Mr. and Mrs. William G. Etherington Sr., who resided on St. Paul Street in the town of Niagara. He was a lifelong resident of the town of Niagara and attended local schools. He enlisted in the Army in July of 1948 and went overseas with the 11th Airborne Division shortly thereafter, where he was stationed in Japan prior to his transfer to Korea. I'm going to read the short bio on Mr. John Sharp, and then we'll have the families come up. PFC John Sharp, a town of Niagara resident, was killed in Guadalcanal on October 5th, 1942. We tried to do a research and did the best we could, but we could not find a lot of information on John. The park and playground are dedicated in their honor. The rededication of the park is in memory of William Etherington, and the playground in memory of John Sharp. They were originally dedicated at different times, but we will rededicate them today, August 21st, 2017, William Etherington Park and John Sharp Playground. If the families are here, please step forward. Next dedication it is a rededication, kind of, but there's never anything been officially done for John Nielsen Sr., even though we dedicated originally not too long ago. I think almost like maybe earlier this year or last year. We'll get to that date shortly. John Nielsen Sr., on January 17th, 1956, he was the chief for the Niagara No. 1 Fire Company. He answered a fire call on his way home from work and was killed fighting that fire, the only firefighter in the history of the town of Niagara to die in action. John was not only a great family man, but also devoted to his position as fire chief. And I want to read something to you that was actually in the paper on January 17th, 1956. I'm going to paraphrase it because it's a little lengthy. It's a small comfort to the family and friends of John Nielsen, chief of Niagara Fire Company No. 1, to record that he died a hero's death. Praise for his courage and his high sense of duty, greatly deserved. Does not enlighten the burden or lighten the burden of grief caused by this tragedy. No person can make a bigger sacrifice serving his community. No tribute can overdo the commendation he earned. If there is a further lesson to be learned from this sad affair, perhaps it lies in the need for better understanding of the full support we need to give to our volunteer firemen. These are our neighbors, the man next door, and our friends across the street. They work hard and long, raising funds, training, fighting fires without pay or other personal gain. John Nielsen was one of these. His enthusiasm and devotion won him the office of chief of his company. He answered that call as a matter of routine duty, and he died before the job was finished. It was a hero's death to the fullest sense. We dedicated this playground earlier this year in March of 2017, but nothing formal was done. So We hereby officially dedicate this park in memory of John Nielsen Sr. on this date, August 21st, 2017. I'd like to have the family come forward, please. Next is our dedication to Gary A. Julianna. Gary was a longtime resident of the town of Niagara and attended local schools. He was a member of the first graduating class at Niagara-Wheatfield High School in 1960. In April 1964, Gary started working with the town of Niagara Police Department as a constable. I remember those guys. And progressed through the ranks to become chief of police in the town of Niagara, retired after 39 years of service. Gary had a passion for assisting the town's youth and coached recreational baseball. Also became the commissioner of the Town of Niagara Recreation Committee, a volunteer position he held for over 20 years. He was instrumental during his tenure as recreation commissioner with the planning of the town's first recreation center, which was the old Nevada Avenue School back in the 70s. It's not even there anymore. That's where our playground sits now. Gary was also an exempt fireman of both Niagara Active and Lewiston II, and he was married to his wife Margaret of 49 years at the time of his passing. He and Margaret raised 4 children, 3 sons, Stephen, Christopher, Gary, and 1 daughter, Beth. Gary passed away at the age of 74 after a long battle with ALS. The park and playground located at the end of Colonial Drive was dedicated in Gary's honor and memory last October 2016, but as with the Nielsen Park, we really didn't have time to do anything proper, so we're doing it here today. So we hereby rededicate this park in the memory of Gary A. Julianna on this date, August 21st, 2017. Okay, we have one more. And that is to rededicate the park in Belden Center, which was the John Watowitz Park, and we are going to rededicate that in John's memory. John was a dedicated employee of the town of Niagara for over 40 years, and under the direction of Joe Rotella, worked tirelessly improving and constructing most of the parks and playgrounds and ball fields that the town used through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. If ever we needed somebody, John was there. He would borrow a piece of the equipment from the town. Couldn't do those kinds of things today. He was one of those guys you could always count on in a pinch, and on many occasions worked in his own time to manicure the ball fields at each park so that each and every town of Niagara youngster had a ball field of their own in their own backyard. The park playground in Belden Center, which is the site of the former Nevada Avenue School, was dedicated in John's honor in December of 1988. We would hereby like to rededicate that park in memory of John on this date, August 21st, 2017. I'd like to have his family come forward. Does anybody notice a common trend here? Belden Center? No, I didn't. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.